The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but Daniel hadn't noticed. He sat at the kitchen counter of their Brooklyn apartment, staring at the rain streaking down the window. The city lights blurred into watercolor smudges against the glass. Across from him, his wife Emma scrolled through her phone, her face illuminated by that familiar blue glow that had become more constant than her smile. "Did you remember to call the plumber?" Daniel asked, breaking the silence that had settled between them like dust. Emma's eyes didn't leave the screen. Oh, no, I forgot. Can you do it?" Daniel nodded, even though she wasn't looking. He picked up his mug, the ceramic cold against his palm, and walked to the sink. As he poured the coffee down the drain, he caught his reflection in the window. When had he started looking so tired? He was a high school English teacher, spending his days trying to make Shakespeare relevant to teenagers who would rather be on TikTok. It wasn't glamorous, but he loved it. He loved the moment when a student's eyes lit up with understanding when words finally clicked into meaning. He came home every day with stories to tell, but lately Emma never asked to hear them. She worked in marketing for a tech startup in Manhattan. Long hours, she always said, important clients, critical meetings. Daniel understood. He had always understood. But understanding doesn't fill the empty space where conversation used to be. Their apartment told the story of what they had been. The bookshelf Daniel had built during their first year of marriage still held their favourite novels, spines cracked from reading. The photos all on the wall captured moments of genuine happiness, their wedding day, a trip to Maine, a sunset in Central Park. But those photos felt like artefacts from someone else's life now. "I'm going to grade papers in the bedroom," Emma announced, standing abruptly. She didn't look at him as she gathered her phone and laptop. "Want me to make dinner later?" Daniel offered. "I was thinking of that pasta dish you like." "I'll probably just grab something at the office," she said, already walking away. "Don't wait up." It was 7:30 on a Friday night. The office excuse was wearing thin. Daniel stood alone in the kitchen, listening to the bedroom door close. Then he heard the lock click. She had started locking the door when she worked. He told himself it was for privacy, for focus, but locks are designed to keep people out. And he was slowly realizing that's exactly what Emma wanted. The notification came on a Tuesday. Daniel was grading essays at the dining table when Emma's laptop chimed from the bedroom. She was in the shower, the sound of water running through the walls of their small apartment. He wouldn't have looked, except the chime came again, and again, and again. Something about the insistence made him stand up. He walked to the bedroom, telling himself he was just closing the laptop to stop the noise. But when he reached the doorway, he saw the screen was still open, notifications stacking up in the corner. "Marcus, can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? Your husband doesn't need to know. You looked incredible in that dress." "I booked us a room for Thursday." Daniel's hand gripped the door frame. The wood creaked under his fingers. His heart hammered against his ribs with a force that made his chest ache. He read the messages again, his eyes scanning each word as if they might rearrange themselves into something innocent. But there was no innocence here. He scrolled up, his hands trembling. The conversation went back weeks, months, maybe. Inside jokes, pet names, plans for secret meetings, complaints about Daniel, how he was boring, how he never wanted to do anything exciting, how he was always buried in books. The shower turned off. Daniel stepped back from the laptop, his mind racing. He walked back to the dining table on autopilot, sitting down in front of the essays that suddenly looked like meaningless scribbles. Emma emerged 15 minutes later, wrapped in her robe, her wet hair leaving dark spots on the fabric. She went straight to her laptop, her eyes widening for just a fraction of a second when she saw the notifications. She closed it quickly before glancing at Daniel. "How's the grading going?" she asked, her voice light, practiced. Daniel looked up at her. He saw the woman he had married 6 years ago, the woman who had laughed at his terrible puns, who had cried at their wedding, who had promised to build a life with him. But he also saw the guilt flickering behind her eyes, the way her hand trembled slightly as she clutched the laptop. "Fine," he said quietly. "Just fine." She studied his face for a moment, searching for signs that he knew. Daniel kept his expression neutral, a skill he had learned from years of hiding his reactions to students' terrible essays. "I'm going to work in the bedroom for a bit," Emma said, backing toward the hallway. "Big presentation tomorrow." "On a Wednesday?" Daniel asked, his voice still calm. "Yeah, you know how it is. Crazy schedule." She disappeared into the bedroom. Daniel heard the lock click again. Then, faintly, he heard her voice through the door. She was on the phone, her tone warm and intimate, nothing like the flat, tired voice she used with him. He sat there for a long time, staring at the essay in front of him. A student had written about betrayal in Othello, about how Iago's lies destroyed everything Othello loved. The irony wasn't lost on Daniel. He didn't confront her that night, or the next. He told himself he needed to be sure, needed more evidence. But the truth was, he was afraid. Afraid of what it would mean, afraid of the conversation that would shatter the fragile routine they had built. So he watched, and he waited. He noticed things he had missed before. The way she angled her phone away from him when they sat on the couch. The new perfume she wore on Thursday nights when she said she had late meetings. The lipstick in a shade she never wore around him. The sudden interest in going to the gym. The new clothes that appeared in her closet. The way she smiled at her phone with a softness she no longer showed him. 3 weeks after seeing those messages, Daniel came home early from school. A student teacher was covering his last period, and he decided to surprise Emma with takeout from her favourite Thai place. Maybe they could talk. Maybe he could ask her what was wrong, what he had done to lose her, whether there was anything left to save. He climbed the stairs to their apartment, the plastic bag of food swinging from his hand. He was thinking about how they could eat on the couch, maybe watch a movie like they used to. Maybe tonight could be the night they found their way back to each other. He unlocked the door quietly, planning to call out and surprise her. But the surprise was his. Emma's laugh echoed from the bedroom. It wasn't the polite laugh she gave at his jokes anymore. This was real, unbridled, the kind of laughter he hadn't heard from her in months. And then he heard the lower rumble of a man's voice, followed by more laughter, intimate and familiar. Daniel stood frozen in the doorway. The takeout bag slipped from his fingers, landing on the hardwood floor with a soft thud. The containers split open, pad thai and spring rolls spilling across the floor. Neither of them heard. He should have stormed in. He should have thrown open the bedroom door and demanded answers. But instead, he just stood there, listening to his wife's happiness with someone else, and felt something inside him go completely numb. The bedroom door was ajar, just slightly. Through the crack, he could see the edge of their bed, the comforter he had bought for their anniversary pushed to the floor. He saw Emma's hand reach out, saw the way another hand intertwined with hers. "I wish we didn't have to hide." Emma's voice drifted through the door. "I hate sneaking around." "Leave him," the man's voice said. "Marcus, you said yourself he doesn't make you happy anymore. Why stay? It's complicated. The apartment, our families, the financial stuff. Those are just excuses, Em. If you wanted to leave, you would." There was a pause. Daniel's hand gripped the door frame, his breath caught in his throat. "I know," Emma said softly. "I'm just scared. What if we're wrong? What if this is just exciting because it's forbidden?" "Then we find out together," Marcus said. "But I'm tired of being your secret." Daniel had heard enough. He bent down, picked up the spilled food with shaking hands, and stuffed it back into the bag. He walked back out of the apartment. He closed the door with the same careful quiet he had opened it with. Daniel walked for hours, through the streets of Brooklyn, past the park where he and Emma used to have picnics, past the bookstore where they browsed on Sunday mornings. The city moved around him, but he felt separate from it, like he was watching his life from behind glass. He found himself on the Brooklyn Bridge as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tourists snapped photos around him, couples held hands, joggers passed by in their rhythmic pace. Everyone else's life was continuing normally while his was falling apart. His phone buzzed. "Emma? Where are you? I'm home and you're not here. Everything okay?" The audacity of the question almost made him laugh. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, "Went for a walk. Be home late." Her response came immediately. "Okay, I'm tired, so I'll probably be asleep." Of course she was tired. Adultery was exhausting work. Daniel sat on a bench and watched the lights of Manhattan flicker to life across the water. He thought about his parents, married for 40 years, still holding hands at the dinner table. He thought about the vows he and Emma had made, the promises that were supposed to mean something. He thought about Marcus, a man whose voice he now knew, whose presence had filled the space in his marriage that he hadn't even known was empty. When he finally came home, it was past midnight. Emma was in bed pretending to be asleep. He knew she was pretending by the tension in her shoulders, the way her breathing was too controlled, too measured. He showered in the dark and climbed into bed on his side, maintaining the careful distance that had grown between them over the months. The bed that had once been a place of intimacy and comfort now felt like a canyon, with each of them clinging to opposite edges. "Daniel?" Emma's voice cut through the darkness. "Yeah? Where were you? I was worried." The lie was almost impressive in its sincerity. Daniel stared at the ceiling, watching the shadows from the streetlights dance across the plaster. "Just went for a walk," he said. "Needed to clear my head." "Oh, okay." A pause. "Is everything all right? You seem distant lately." The irony of her asking that question while Marcus's cologne probably still lingered on her skin was not lost on Daniel. He could confront her now, here in the darkness. He could ask her everything, but he found he didn't want to hear her answers, didn't want to watch her scramble for excuses. "Just tired," he said. "Work stuff." "Oh, well, good night then." "Good night, Emma." He listened to her breathing eventually even out into actual sleep. He stayed awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his wedding ring on his finger, like an anchor dragging him down. The next day, Daniel called a lawyer during his lunch break. He sat in his car in the school parking lot, watching students laugh and play on the field, their lives uncomplicated and full of possibility. The woman on the phone was kind but professional. Mrs. Catherine Morrison had been practicing family law for 20 years, and her voice carried the weight of having heard every story. "How can I help you, Mr. Hayes?" she asked. "I need to know my options," Daniel said, his voice hoarse. "My wife is having an affair. I'm not sure how to proceed." "I'm sorry you're going through this," Catherine said, and she sounded like she meant it. "Do you have children?" "No." "Shared assets. The apartment is in both our names. We have a joint bank account, some savings, nothing too complicated." "That makes things more straightforward," she said. She asked more questions. How long had they been married? Did he have proof of the affair? Was he interested in trying counselling first? "No counselling," Daniel said firmly. "That ship has sailed. I just want to know what divorce looks like, what I need to do." They talked for 30 minutes. Catherine explained the process in New York, the waiting periods, the division of assets, the emotional reality of what he was facing. By the time he hung up, he had an appointment scheduled for the following week to begin paperwork. Daniel sat in his car for a long time after the call ended. Around him, the lunch period was ending. Students filtered back toward the building, their voices fading. He looked at his wedding ring, then slowly pulled it off his finger. The skin underneath was lighter, a pale band marking where the ring had been for 6 years. He put the ring in his glove compartment and closed it. That evening, Daniel came home to an empty apartment. Emma had texted that she was working late again. He knew where she really was, could picture her in some hotel room with Marcus, living out the excitement she claimed to crave. He made himself dinner, pasta with marinara sauce, garlic bread, a simple salad. He set the table for one. As he ate alone in their small dining room, he realized this was what his future looked like. Solo dinners, quiet evenings, a life rebuilt from the ruins of broken promises. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe quiet was better than the constant anxiety of wondering where she was, who she was with, what lies she was telling. Emma came home at 10, smelling of wine and cologne that wasn't his. She was slightly flushed, her makeup smudged, her hair messier than it had been that morning. "Sorry I'm so late," she said, not meeting his eyes. The client dinner ran forever. "It's fine," Daniel said. He was reading on the couch, and he didn't look up from his book. Emma hesitated, as if she expected him to say more, to question her. When he didn't, she seemed almost disappointed. "I'm going to shower and go to bed," she announced. "Okay." "Daniel?" He looked up. She was standing in the hallway, backlit by the bathroom light, and for a moment she looked like the woman he had married. Vulnerable, uncertain. Yes, she opened her mouth, then closed it. Nothing. Good night. Good night. He listened to the shower run, listened to her get ready for bed, listened to the apartment settle into its nightly quiet, and he realized he felt nothing. The anger had burned out. The hurt had numbed. All that remained was a hollow acceptance of what needed to happen next. The confrontation, when it finally came, was anticlimactic. It happened on a Saturday morning. Emma was making coffee, humming to herself, in a better mood than Daniel had seen her in months. Her phone sat on the counter next to her, and it buzzed with a text. She reached for it, but Daniel was faster. He picked it up and saw the preview on the lock screen. "Marcus, last night was amazing. Can't wait for next weekend in the Hamptons." Emma's face went white. She reached for the phone, but Daniel held it out of reach. "Who's Marcus, Emma?" he asked. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "Daniel, give me my phone." "Who is he?" "It's not... That's just..." she stammered, her composure cracking. "It's complicated." "Actually, it seems pretty simple," Daniel said. He set the phone down on the counter between them. "You're having an affair. You've been having one for months, maybe longer. And you've been lying to me about it every single day." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It just did." Daniel laughed, a bitter sound that didn't belong in his throat. "Things don't just happen, Emma. You made choices. You chose to message him. You chose to meet him. You chose to bring him into our home, into our bed." She flinched at that last part. "How did you—" "I came home early 3 weeks ago, with your favourite Thai food." He smiled sadly. "I was going to surprise you. Turns out I was the one who got surprised." "Daniel, I love you. I do. I just felt so lost. You're always so content with your teaching and your books, and I wanted more. I wanted excitement, adventure, to feel alive again." "So you found it with someone else instead of talking to me?" Daniel walked to the drawer where they kept important documents. He pulled out a folder and set it on the counter. "I've contacted a lawyer. These are divorce papers. I'll sleep in the guest room until we figure out living arrangements." "Daniel, please." Emma reached for his arm, but he stepped back. "I'm not angry, Emma." And as he said it, he realized it was true. The anger had burned out during those weeks of watching and waiting, leaving only a hollow sadness. "I'm just tired. I'm tired of being the person you settle for when the excitement isn't available. I'm tired of wondering where you are, who you're with, what lies you're telling. I'm just tired. We can fix this," she sobbed. "We can go to counselling. I'll end things with Marcus. We can start over. You can't unbreak glass, Emma. You can glue it back together, but it'll never be the same. The cracks will always be there." He picked up the divorce papers and walked toward the guest room. "I loved you," Emma called after him, her voice breaking. "I still love you." Daniel stopped at the doorway but didn't turn around. "No, you don't! You love the safety I provided. You love having someone who pays half the rent and cooks dinner and doesn't ask questions. But you don't love me. If you did, we wouldn't be here." He closed the door behind him and sat on the edge of the guest bed. His hands were shaking, adrenaline finally catching up to him. But underneath the trembling, he felt something else. Relief. The waiting was over. The uncertainty was over. Now he could start to rebuild. The divorce took 4 months to finalise. Emma moved out within 2 weeks, staying with Marcus in his downtown loft. Daniel heard through mutual friends that they seemed happy, at least for a while. He heard that Marcus had proposed after 3 months, that Emma had said yes, that they were planning a small destination wedding. He felt nothing hearing the news. That chapter of his life was closed. Daniel stayed in the apartment. He repainted the bedroom a deep navy blue, replaced all the sheets and curtains, moved the furniture around. He tried to erase the memory of what had been, but some stains go deeper than paint can cover. The hardest part was the loneliness. Coming home to an empty apartment, cooking for one, sleeping in a bed that felt too large. He threw himself into his work, spending extra hours helping students, volunteering for committees, anything to avoid the silence of home. His students noticed the change in him. He was quieter, more introspective. But he was also more present, more willing to sit with them after class and really listen when they talked about their problems. Pain had made him softer somehow, more attuned to the suffering of others. One of his students, a girl named Maya, who was struggling with her parents' divorce, stayed after class one day. "Mr. Hayes?" she asked tentatively. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. How do you deal with it when people let you down?" Daniel set down the papers he was grading and gave her his full attention. "You mean your parents?" She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "My mom cheated on my dad. They're getting divorced, and everyone is acting like it's normal, like it's fine. But it's not fine. Our whole family is falling apart." Daniel felt his heart constrict. "No, it's not fine. And anyone who tells you it is lying to make themselves feel better. So how do you get through it?" "Honestly, one day at a time. Some days are better than others. You let yourself feel the hurt, but you don't let it define you. And eventually you realize that other people's choices don't diminish your worth. Your mom's decision to cheat says nothing about you or your dad. It only speaks to who she is in this moment." Maya wiped her eyes. "Were you talking about yourself just then?" Daniel smiled sadly. "Maybe a little. I'm going through a divorce too." "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes." "Me too, but we'll both get through it. And someday we'll be stronger for it." He wasn't sure he believed that yet, but saying it out loud made it feel more possible. 6 months after the divorce was finalised, Daniel was at a bookstore in Greenwich Village. It was a Saturday afternoon, and he had decided to walk through the city, trying to reclaim the spaces that had felt haunted by his marriage. He was browsing the poetry section, running his fingers along the spines of books by Neruda, Rumi, Mary Oliver. He pulled out a collection of Pablo Neruda's love sonnets and was flipping through it when someone bumped into him from behind, knocking the book from his hands. "I'm so sorry!" The woman bent down to pick up the book, her dark curly hair falling forward. When she looked up, Daniel saw kind brown eyes and a genuine smile that reached all the way to those eyes. "God, I'm such a klutz! Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Daniel said, taking the book from her. Their fingers brushed, and he felt a small spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time. No harm done. She glanced at the title in his hands, and her smile widened. "Pablo Neruda. Good choice. I love his sonnet 17, the one about loving someone without asking where or when or how. You know Neruda?" "I teach Spanish literature at NYU," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Sophia Reyes." "Daniel Hayes. I teach English at a high school in Brooklyn." Her handshake was firm and warm. She didn't immediately pull away, and neither did he. "Another teacher," Sophia laughed. "We're a rare breed in bookstores on Saturday afternoons. Most people are out doing normal things." "Normal is overrated," Daniel said, surprising himself. "I'd rather be here." "Me too." They stood there for a moment, neither quite willing to end the conversation. Sophia tilted her head, studying him with an openness that felt refreshing after months of Emma's guardedness. "This might be forward," Sophia said, "but would you want to get coffee? There's a great place around the corner, and I'd love to talk about books and teaching with someone who gets it." Daniel felt his heart skip. The old Daniel, the one who was still married, would have politely declined. But that Daniel had been betrayed, broken down, and rebuilt,